So in that Washington Post Scar School survey that we were discussing last hour, a decisive factor in the Democrat support appears to be women who prefer Democratic candidates by 14 points, 54 to 40%, while men favor the Republicans by 5 points. And a new CNN SSRS poll conducted Thursday through Monday shows this: 31% of women approve of the job the president is doing, 62% disapprove. On the flip side, 51% of men approve, while 43% disapprove. That's a gender gap of 39 points. And potentially more troubling for Republicans, a spike in the number of women who support the Democrats over the Republicans in their choice for Congress. This chart, based on NBC Wall Street Journal polls, shows the trend since 2010, when Republicans took over, going from a 6-point gap that year to a 25-point one this year. Joe.
It is a gender gap, Casey, that it seems to be very significant. The question is, though, do Democrats get out the vote? That's what it all comes down to. We saw in Northern Virginia, obviously, women in Northern Virginia making a big difference in the Virginia gubernatorial race. We saw black women in Alabama helping Doug Jones get elected in Alabama. Can you tell me, what are the Democrats doing? Is there, do they seem organized around this concept that if they win this fall, they will win because of motivated women?
I think that's absolutely what they think. I mean, that gender gap is devastating. Those trend lines, I mean, I'm not clear how the Republican Party can recover from something like that in the long run. Now, I think the question is, how much of this is strictly about President Trump, and will those lines start to trend back together if, he's no longer seen as the leader of the Republican Party? But I think every piece of evidence that we have, from the sheer number of women who are running for office, I mean, record numbers, and we should be clear, these are mostly Democratic women. There are some Republican women running, of course, but this is predominantly a Democratic trend. And when you look at a state like Virginia, which is, one of the few test cases that we've had since the presidential election, this organization a lot of times was coming from the bottom up, not the top down. If anything, the Democratic Party here in Washington has had to sort of take a breath. I mean, there have been some congressional races where they missed really good candidates. Amy McGrath in Kentucky is a good example of this. I interviewed her a couple weeks ago. She is, or perhaps months ago now, she is an incredibly sharp candidate. They wanted to nominate someone else, the mayor of Lexington, who had been in the political system for a long time, a white man. She beat him in the primary, so then they came around. Now they're helping her. But, you saw that in all of those, right down to the state house races in Virginia, the first transgender woman winning in a, previously Republican state house seat, et cetera. So, I think we really don't fully have our heads around the depth of this yet. And so, I think it could actually, as much as we've talked about it, it could surprise people on Election Day.
Walter, I remember Jimmy Carter in 1980 when he made his announcement to run for re-election against Ronald Reagan. And he came out swinging against Reagan, and he talked about, and I'll just paraphrase him here, he talked about a country that was divided between men and women, the East from the West, the North from the South, blacks from whites, rural America versus urban America. Maybe President Carter was about 40 years too early to really see the sort of division that we're seeing now, where you do see, you look at the poll that shows a massive gender gap for women between Republicans and Democrats. You can see the same for rural and urban. You can see the same for black and white. This is politically a country divided, almost split straight down the middle. Pick your category, whichever ones that Jimmy Carter brought up 40 years ago, that seems to be, where the dividing lines are.
Joe, you put your finger on the worst thing about this, which is we were very, very divided as a nation. We got more partisan over the past, 15, 20 years. The Trump election made it even more so. And with Dr. Blasey Ford's testimony, so deeply appealing and resonant with a lot of women, but also the whole circus that ended up surrounding the thing. They got a whole lot of men upset. Now you see a big divide between men and women. I'm teaching at Tulane. I'm suddenly seeing a divide between the young women and the young men in the classroom, where they're all rolling their eyes at each other. So you're taking a nation and ripping it apart on every seam line, every fault line you can possibly find: liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican, rural, urban, north, south, and now male, female. I just hope that people get so sick of this, and by the way, get sick of the way both parties have resorted to, let's see how much we can rip apart, you know, the DNA of America rather than, you know, join it together, that some candidates will come along and say, okay, time out, let's start bringing this thing back together.
So, Walter, what do you tell your students in class today? What do other educators across America, be they talking to high school students or college students or grad students, what do you tell them? How does this, how do we repair the breach? How do we move forward?
Yeah, I tell them that this has happened many, many times in our country, that it happened in my memory during the Vietnam period and the civil rights marches down here in New Orleans and the rest of the South. It happened during the McCarthy period, and of course, in the greatest tragedy of all, happened during our Civil War. We're pretty good at bringing people back together, but the question is, do we have systems now that just continually push us apart? Systems ranging from gerrymandering to social media, where people get pushed into their own bubble. So what can we do to break the systemic problems that are tearing us apart? And secondly, I say, you're in college, you're around a table like this. This is the most diverse table you'll ever be around. I look around my seminar table and I say, you know, look, these are people from Vietnam, and here's some, you know, blacks, we have whites, we have very conservatives, a couple of kids from Kentucky, deeply supportive of Trump and thought that Brett Kavanaugh had his reputation savaged. I said, let's see if we can have a civil conversation about it to show that it doesn't have to become the way it is in this country.
Walter Isaacson, thank you very much. Great questions as well. Still ahead on Morning Joe, we've been talking about how women vote, but what about how they run? The president of Emily's List weighs in on the record number of female candidates putting their names on the ballot. You're watching Morning Joe. We'll be right back.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.